All right, folks, coming at you from Navarre's practice field. I'm DC Reeves, sports writer with the News Journal, joined by Jason Blakeney, my trusty sidekick, as always.
Trusty sidekick?
Yeah.
What, am I Robin over here?
No, not that good. All right, so we got week 9 here. We've got week 9 of football. We got sort of a smaller slate, sort of a lull. We had such great games last week. We had, the Pace Pine Forest game, of course, Catholic Walton. Now, there really aren't as many meaningful games this week, but there's really one big one on the slate for two teams, and that's Pace and Navarre.
Right, and it's really kind of unexpected from a lot of folks that Navarre would be in this position coming into this point of the year, still with a chance to win the district. Who would have thought that coming in, to the beginning of the year? We thought Navarre could be competitive. We thought they'd be a better football team. We were here during the spring, saw some intensity in practice that we didn't see really at any other school.
Right.
But who would have thought that they would be in the position where they actually have a legitimate shot to win some games at the end of the season and make the playoffs?
Right. We're talking about a team that's back-to-back 3-7 seasons, and now you look at them, they're entering the 9th week of the season with a legitimate chance at making the playoffs. Here's how it works. Navarre's got to go to Pace this week and win. Then and if Tate beats Escambia this week, they've got to also beat Tate in the final district game of the year to lock up that runner-up spot behind Pine Forest in District 1-4A, which means it'd be a road game in the first round. But hey, that's a long road that traveled to go from 3-7. Now you'd be looking at a playoff spot in really the toughest district in this area. So yeah, it's a great opportunity for Navarre. As a fan, you'd almost like to see this game at Navarre because, because let's face it, Pace would be the favorite in this game. They're a traditional power. They make the playoffs almost every year, it seems like. So to have this game at Navarre would maybe level it, but by no means does that mean this would be impossible for Navarre to pull this off the way that Colton Kane, the quarterback's been playing, and the way the defense has been playing. Right.
You wonder if maybe they picked a bad week to have to face Pace, though, after coming off the shellacking they got from Pine Forest. Really got out-athleted and really kind of outplayed in that game. You don't expect a Mickey Lindsay coach team to go out and do that 2 weeks in a row. But then you never know how these Navarre kids are going to react. This is the first real high-pressure game any of them have ever played. And you wonder how they're going to react to that. Maybe they rise to it. Maybe it's something they feed off of. And you never know how they're still riding that wave of emotion that they've been on all year.
Right. It's hard to envision, as you said, a Mickey Lindsay coach team losing 2 district home games in a row. That's just a hard thing to imagine. But this is high school football. We've seen crazier things, and without a doubt. So great game with some playoff implications on the docket there. That's a 7:30 kickoff at Patriot Stadium at Pace High. Navarre traveling to Pace again. So also in 1-4A game we already mentioned earlier that plays into some playoff implications, and we have one team, Tate, that, crazy as it sounds, is sitting at 3-5 and actually still has a very, very outside chance to make the playoffs. Tate going to Escambia.
Right, that was a big win for them last week, taking on Milton and earning that win. Keeps them alive. If you asked a lot of people around the area coming into last week, you would think both those teams were dead. But, you get Tate, gets a little help, hey, who knows? And once you get to the playoffs, it doesn't really matter how you played, up to this point. As long as you start playing good football now, you never know how far you may be able to go.
Yeah, and we see teams all the time, 4 losses, 5 losses make the playoffs. That is not uncommon. Tate would need to be 5-5. They're 3-5 now. Here's their roadmap. They've got to win both of their final 2 district games, which are against Escambia this week, against Navarre next week. They'd have to win both of those, but they would also have to have Pace lose to Navarre, and they would have to have Pace lose their final game, which is against Milton, who's in the basement in 1-4A. But hey, that's a rivalry game. Right. Again, as we just mentioned a second ago, crazier things have happened. So. Unlikely, absolutely. It's a very unlikely scenario. But hey, again, 3-5, and they've got a chance if they can knock off Escambia this week. But Escambia's reeling, coming off they got throttled basically here, 51-7 at Navarre, and so we'll still have to see how they respond.
Yeah, it's been a tough year for them since starting off so hot and really surprising a lot of people. They got into district play, and it's really kind of been a slow decline downhill. But, a lot of that is due to the opposition. You're playing teams like the Paces and the Pine Forest and, even the Navarres now, and that's going to happen. You're going to lose some games when you don't have quite the cohesion that a lot of these other teams have. Chad Lashley at Navarre, Mickey Lindsay at Pace, and Jerry Pollard at Pine Forest, all those guys have their systems in place, and all their players know what they're doing. And at Escambia, you can't say that. First year under Scott Anderson, only had a couple days before the season started to actually start learning anything that he wants to do. Right. So, you know, that's always going to be a tough first year for a team like that.
Sure, and you know, you look at one situation, as we said, Mickey Lindsay, hard to imagine him losing 2 home games in a row. Same thing with Pine Forest this week. Pine Forest goes to Milton. Hard to imagine coming off such an impressive win at pace that Pine Forest would have any trouble with Milton. Right. But again, we're talking about high school football here. You talk about coming down off I mean, that was Pine Forest's best game of the year. That's they only turned the ball over 1 time. Purifoy's best game of the year by far. So how do they respond? You know, emotional letdown. We see that in college. We see that in the NFL. We see that everywhere. How do you manage that? And that's something that when I talked to Jerry Pollard earlier this week, he said he was a little worried about.
Yeah, but, you know, at the same time, these high school kids understand that these district games are what's important. And that was what makes it a little bit easier to not worry about that emotional letdown, is that you're going, sure, you know, great, you beat Pace, but you're still not out of the woods in the district. If this were a non-district game, right, I think I would worry a lot about a letdown. Right. Maybe you see the turnovers creep back in. Maybe you don't see quite the effort that you saw out of those guys last week at Pace. But, you know, I think facing another district opponent, having a chance to wrap up the district, get things done, and then have a couple weeks to kind of cruise and get healthy and not worry, you know, mentally about things, I think that gives them a lot of incentive to go out and play well this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, you look at the way Pine Forest is playing, hard to imagine. Purifoy is on a roll. They beat Lincoln 28-21. They turned the ball over 6 times in that game, and Purifoy sort of single-handedly carried them in that game. Right. So hard to imagine that train slowing down the way Purifoy is playing. But 2 things with Milton. One, on the negative side, you've got to worry about, can they win a game the rest of the year? They started 2-0. They might finish 2-8. They've got their last 3 games are Pine Forest, Pace, and Catholic. So, yeah, I mean, that's about as 3 tough games as you can finish with. Mm-hmm. On the other side, they've got skill players, Matt Floyd, namely a quarterback. They've got Paul Young, Devin Tillis. They've got some solid core skill players. Right. This is not your typical 2-8 team when you look at this roster, at least on paper. They've had some silly errors, some silly mistakes, some close losses, but from a personnel standpoint, this is a team that when they are maybe hitting on all cylinders can compete with some of the better teams in the area.
Yeah, I mean, you know, these players, they have to see the things that are going on the message boards and, you know, listen to the kind of the buzz around the community where people are really starting to question the hire of Bobby Johns. And that has to fuel these players a little bit. You have to be able to go out there and battle for your coach. And, you know, at 2-5 right now, you have to say maybe we don't know what we're getting here, but he doesn't have his players, he doesn't have his system in place. Right. And maybe over the next couple of years you see an improvement he has everywhere else. Right. But, you know, playing for your coach, that's got to be something, and that maybe that fuels Milton.
Yeah, and also, something we've mentioned before on wrap-up videos, Milton ain't Tuscaloosa and it ain't Baton Rouge. I mean, let's slow down here. This is not the SEC. This is not a 2-year judgment. Right. You know, if they gave Bozo the Clown the head coaching job out there, you got to give him 3 years, right, you know, to at least get his players in, get his system in. Right. So I think all that talk is way, way, way too early for any coach. And so, you know, we'll see how they respond. And, hey, if they can come up with a big win in any of those 3 games coming down the stretch, that could do a lot for momentum for next year and to be able to get a little excitement around the program. Right. Too,
so. You know, contrary to popular belief, there is no recruiting in high school football.
Right.
So, you know, you can't really, your coach can't really just go in and shape his team. So.
Right. Absolutely. So, anyway, well, to wrap up on those, I didn't give you the times and locations. We have Tate is going to be at Escambia, Emmett Smith Field, 7:30 kickoff there. Pine Forest is at Milton, at Haywood's Handa Stadium, another 7:30 kick. And then the last game we were going to talk about was Washington at West Florida. It was actually a game I was at last year, a big comeback victory. This is the News Radio 1620 game of the week with us. Jason, you'll be there on the radio, live, large and in charge. And anyway, 2 struggling teams, 2 teams with only 1 win this year. But, you know, hey, let's face it, it's going to be a pretty competitive game. Last year was. I'm sure it will be this year, too.
I thought we agreed no more fat jokes, man.
Nah, look at you, Andy. Hey, slim and trim.
Hey, thanks. No, you look at Washington, a team that's been snake bit all year. Mm-hmm. You know, you have to wonder if that's going to continue. They have the better athletes over a West Florida High. You know, but in West Florida High, you know, they've got Kyle Faxlanger over there, is not scared to throw the ball around. They've got a pair of running backs that are pretty darn good. And it should be a good game. It should be one of the more contested games this week. You know, maybe it's not the best game as far as, you know, records and overall meaning and what's going to happen, you know, after that. But as far as the actual contest on the field, it should be a pretty good one.
Yeah, I mean, contrasting styles there, too. You know, we've got a run-based offense at West Florida. You got a passing offense with the Dijon Thunderbird there at Washington. So, you know, it should be interesting. We'll see sort of which style wins out. And, you know, so those are really the sort of 4 marquee games we've got this week. That game's going to be at at Marlon L. Bullock Field at Woodham Middle School, and that's a 7 p.m. kick. The other games are 7:30. That one's a 7 o'clocker. So we'll run down the rest of the games we have. We have 2 1A teams going on the road. We've got Jay going to Panama City Bozeman. If you saw in the paper earlier this week, Elijah Bell has stepped down, effective at the end of the season. He'll coach the final 3 games for Jay. And then he'll call it quits there, and I think he'll be leaving the school as both the athletic director and as the head coach. Right. Northview will be going to Sneeds. This is a game that Northview should win, but it's a game they've got to win, too. They've got to win this game, and they've got to beat Vernon next week in the big showdown at home on November 5th to lock up a playoff spot. So both teams going on the road there in 1A. We also got Gulf Breeze and PHS, District 1 3A game. PHS can lock up the district title, surprise, surprise, with a win against Gulf Breeze.
Yeah, you know, Gulf Breeze has been competitive, though, in the last several weeks. You know, you got a pair of wins. You had a tough loss last week. It'd be interesting to see if they can. Nowhere in my mind do I believe they have any chance to go in and win this game. Right. But it'd be interesting to see how long they can stay competitive. Right. In the end, PHS athletes will, you know, they'll overcome you. Right. But you know, it'd be interesting to see what happens.
And that's no different than any other team. That's nothing personal.
That's no slight on Gulf Breeze. That's just the PHS is that good.
We say that every week about anybody they play, barring them playing a college football team or something. So, but hey, this is going to be a better game at least than we thought it would have been after 3 or 4 weeks of the season. So, anyway, that's Jim Scoggins Stadium, 7:30 kickoff there, and that's pretty much it. So we've wrapped up all the games for you. Stay tuned. Make sure you stick around for Saturday morning. We'll have our wrap-up video. We'll talk about all the games.
Are you going to close this up without doing picks?
Oh,
pick them. Yeah, pick them, man.
Oh, I'm sorry. Once I took the lead, I don't want to pick any games anymore.
No, just because you haven't taken the lead. You should still want to pick. You're 1 game back. That's all right. You're staying competitive. I appreciate that.
All right. Well, go ahead. Oh, you're right. How did I miss the ladder?
Let's go up that ladder.
All right. Go ahead. All right. We'll start with Jay at Bozeman.
I'm going to go Bozeman. Maybe this is a game that Jay has a chance to win. A little extra emotion with Elijah Bell leaving, and Bozeman's really not all that good a football team, but I'm going to go with Bozeman.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Bozeman, too. A pretty easy pick for me there. Jay's just been struggling too much. So, Northview at Sneeds.
Northview, I like them. Sneeds, not a great football team. Kind of put them in the same category as the Bozemans. And, I think Northview, that running game, and if they can pull out the spread offense again, who knows what's going to happen.
Yeah, you worry about a look ahead with Northview because the Vernon game on November 5th is so big. In this case, though, Sneeds has just been struggling all year. I don't think Northview will have any issues there. So, Gulf Breeze at PHS.
PHS.
Yeah, PHS next, right? All right, Washington at West Florida.
Give me the Wildcats. I've been going with them for a couple weeks now. They've cost me a couple times. I won't be angry about that. But I like them this week. I think they can go out and win.
Yeah, I like their playmakers. I like their skill guys a little bit better. I like their defense a little bit better. Right. So I'm going to stick with Washington in a close game there. Tate at Escambia.
I'm going to go with the Aggies. Big win last week. I look for them to get another one.
Yeah, I like Tate to stay alive in the playoff race, even though we don't know for how long they'll stay alive, but they'll be in it. I like Tate in that game as well. Pine Forest at Milton.
Pine Forest. They're the best team in the area. I'll keep them. I'll take them.
Well, yeah, there is a team called PHS in this area too.
Now, I'm sorry, they're the best team in the district. Let's say that.
Okay. Let's say that. All right. Well, hey, but it's close now. The way the both are playing,
it is. I'd like to see them play again.
Right.
Let's put that game in the last week of the year instead of the first.
That was just a little too certain for me for you to say that.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I got you.
Many apologies.
I understand. I will be taking Pine Forest as well. I think they'll have zero problem with Milton, and they'll keep cruising along to that and lock up that district title. So, last game here we've got Navarre at Pace. The game with really the only game with true implications, on the line for both teams.
All right, I'm going to go with Pace. They're at home. They're coming off a tough loss again for maybe the 5th time in the video. Don't expect to make your Lindsay coach team to lose 2 in a row.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you got to stick with Pace here. I mean, they're too fundamentally sound. They had a couple miscues in the last game. Really got out-athleted last game. That's not going to be the case this game. Right. I don't see them really having any issue. I think it'll be close early. I see Pace pulling away late there for the win. So now can I wrap up the video?
Now you can wrap up the video.
All right. Be sure to check out, if you didn't catch it 5 seconds ago. Be sure to check out Saturday morning. We'll wrap up all the games for you from the Fishbowl at the PNJ Newsroom. And we'll also have our Check My Stats Players of the Week. So make sure you stay tuned with that. I'm DC Reeves. This is Jason Blakeney, and we'll catch you on Saturday.